Visit No One Likes Us Clothing for all your Millwall clobber. www.noonelikesus.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Gary Rowett, and you're listening to the world famous Achtung Millwall.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Achtung Millwall, much imitated but never beaten. Welcome to our Something for the Weekend show. And he's joining me as my regular co-host for these little Thursday and Friday jaunts sometimes. Mr. Neil Fissler. How are you, Neil?
Yeah, not too bad, Nick. Not too bad. Yaki da, as they say across the river.
Yaki da. Well, not quite. I was just saying to Neil off air, we're actually away at the moment, so working with a fairly agricultural, rural internet stream here. I'm hoping that it produces sound quality suitable for your delicate ears, but I'm actually just about I'm still in England, but the river at the bottom of our garden forms the boundary between England and Wales. On the other bank, I can see it through our back window here, is Wales itself. But I'm still in England, Neil, so I'm still in God's country.
Yeah, but this is the original show from the makers of, really, isn't it? Don't quite know where the real Millwall fan show comes from. I think it was Love Sport.
Oh, we put that together. That was the radio show that when Aaron was on Love Sport Radio, and is now gone. Obviously, he's moved on to the BBC, but that was the name of our show that we did on Love Sport Radio. They actually had quite a good idea on that show. It was to put together like an evening's live radio show of composed around the main podcast for all of the London clubs. It's actually a really good idea. They never really, I thought, exploited that idea, nor did they advertise themselves enough around the football grounds. But that was, I'm not going to tell Kelvin McKenzie how to run a business, Neil, am I? But that's what I might have done. I might have advertised it a little bit at the main football grounds, but it was a great station. And I really enjoyed working on there. But that was the name of our radio show on there, the Real Millwall Fan Show.
It reminds me of a YouTube channel that used to get me on quite a lot. Sports Tonight Live, I think it was called, a few years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of demand. I mean, obviously going off tangent here a little bit, listeners, but I mean, we live in the world now of YouTube and easy access, even doing this show that we do, Neil. It's a kind of like a successor to the old fanzines of the past where fans have a voice. And I'm all for having a voice. I suppose sometimes the price that comes with that is you can lose a bit of quality sometimes. I don't know if that's being unfair on those that actually put their heads above the parapet and make stuff, because I'm all in favour of people doing stuff and choice, and you tune into what you want to listen to, whatever that might be, whatever direction. But you can't skimp on the quality, in my opinion. I think sometimes it's easy to just put stuff out raw if you want. I don't know if I'm making sense, listeners, but I do try to edit our shows to give a decent listen. That's always been my aim, and I'm hoping that that's what people tune into us for. But more power, anyone that does that. That's an originality. Hope so. Oh dear. Anyway, let's move along. Get off of that. Millwall nil, Hull City nil last weekend. I watched it down here, listeners, on a stream that came and went with the mooing of the cows outside. I saw enough, Neil, to know that it was a very, very frustrating watch. Did you get to see it, mate? Do you have a view of the game last week?
Mate, I'm trying to forget about that game last week. I think it's best forgotten, isn't it? 0-0 against 10 men.
Yeah.
It just as it seems like we're taking 3 steps forward, we take 4 back, don't we? I know it's not a defeat, but it wasn't a good week.
It felt like it. I was thinking about this before we did the show today, Neil, because it felt a bit like a disappointment. I got every sense watching on from afar that the Den was disappointed. And I just looked through Richard Corley's takeaways piece that he does on the South London Press, London News Online. And there's a sense of, that we should have done a lot better. but then I watched the YouTube clips, and I wasn't there, so I wasn't in the cold and rain, and I hadn't kind of invested in being at the game. I've been away this week. But actually, when you take a step back, we're not in a bad position. We're just 3 points off of the top six. Yes, we should have beat Hull, and it would have been joyous if we'd have got one of those chances in. On another day, any one of those near miss chances, and we did have a few there, Neil. They would have gone in, and we'd have come away with a win, and everyone would have been feeling a lot better. It was just sometimes luck plays its part in football as much as tactics.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about this division, I think, this season is that we haven't scored in a. Yeah, we went three games without scoring, haven't we, at the minute?
Yeah.
But because everything's so close, we are 3 points away. But then again, another way of looking upon it is we're a lot closer to the bottom than we've really.
It's like glass half empty.
No, it's true though, isn't it? Yeah, we haven't scored in. Yeah, we've just gone 3 games without scoring. Because of the makeup of the league, actually, I'd quite like to have seen us win that game. Birmingham, I think we spoke about, didn't we, last week? That was a frustration. It's been a frustrating couple of weeks, really, and it's you want to get a little bit of momentum going into this break, don't we? Or the pause or whatever they're
the World Cup pause that looms. Yeah, no, I take those points, and I get entirely. If I'd have been in the ground last Saturday, I would have probably felt as frustrated as everyone that was there, and so I'm never going to knock that. We do struggle. I'm just looking at the 4 takeaways that Richard's got here, and the first one he mentions that we didn't exploit the red card situation, but we've never historically, Neil, exploited situations where we are the favourites. I think there's something in the Mill DNA that says we must be the underdog, or else we can't beat a team. It's something deep. I think we've never been good with the weight of expectation on our shoulders, and even on small situations like that, down to 10 men, the opponents, we can't find a way. And I don't know why, but I mean, that's been so over the 50 years I've been going. I mean, you'd probably say the same. I mean, we've just never done well against 10 men, have we? I don't know why.
Well, yeah, it's a strange one because I think that we struggle to break teams down at times, don't we? And if they shove 8 or 9, 10 men behind the ball, it's something that we struggle to unlock. We don't create. And when we do create, there's nobody to get on the end of it.
No.
Yeah, without criticising him too much, one thing that I did notice last week is Fleming seems to blow a lot very hot and cold. Tries the Hollywood stuff too often.
Yeah, because you mentioned this to me, and I was thinking about that because that was the point that you made, I think, on WhatsApp, and I get that. As King's Counsel for the defence of Zian Fleming, I thought about that, and I know what you mean because towards the end he had a very ambitious shot from. I mean, it was on, but I think it was more frustration on his part. I think he's a talent. I think that he does try the unusual, and I suppose when that comes off, you look brilliant. And when towards the end of a tough, dogged match, you're trying Hollywood balls or shots or whatever way you want to put it, you look like it can blow up in your face somewhat. I do know what you mean. I mean, I suppose that I think he's going to be the kind of player that will frustrate managers because he's always going to go for the flamboyant option. The crowd, he's a crowd pleaser rather than a manager's dream of the workhorse. I don't know if that's a fair assessment of him, but I really like him. Listeners can probably tell.
I think he's a great player. Yeah, no, I think he's a fantastic player. He's the kind of player we've been crying out a long time for, but I think there's a time and a place for everything. And trying 30-yard Rabona passes, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean.
Trying to shoot from outrageous distances, not quite what we needed.
No. I mean, the ball into the box. I mean, but then I suppose on an afternoon where nothing seemed to work for us. That said, we did have plenty of chances. I think I'd be more worried. I'd always take the point that we don't have a top class striker, but show me many expensive players in the Championship that are top class. Really, we certainly don't have that. Good old Tom Bradshaw is the epitome of hard-working effort. But in the end, even that has its limitations. We reached it last Saturday. To find the kind of striker that we need to really unpick that defence, because I thought Hull, as much as they were shithousing their way through the game, I thought they were really well organised. They didn't give an inch, and we just struggled to find a way through that. But I think that's a common streak, certainly this season. I think we do struggle when teams shut up shop, Neil. We don't have that level of footballing intelligence to unpick it, and I include the manager on that, because I think I think he reaches his limits at times, especially against these kinds of opponents.
Yeah, I think that I think if there is one weakness, I think everybody can see it, that we do lack a top class striker. I think it's something that I've got ambitions we have spoke about. We do need to address, but they ain't cheap. And whether or not we're going to rely on John Berylson to stick his hand in his pocket and find £5 million hiding behind the sofa. Or a couple of million quid.
I wonder if he does have that. I wonder if the Berylson household does have, it's fell out of his back pocket, a couple of million quid down the back of their sofa. I wouldn't have thought they would do that. That's a nice, fanciful idea, listeners.
As we taking a skip full of loose change down to the Coinmatic to try and cash in a couple of million quid's worth of dimes and cents and things like that, just so we can put in a bid for a striker.
Down the back of our settee would be crumbs, maybe a coin, possibly a bit of paper or something. I don't know, but Anyway, we probably shouldn't dwell on the back, what goes down the cushions at the John Berylson household, but. Be nice to think he would find £5 million down there or something for a strike. On the good side, Neil. Richard's made this point that the clean sheets are racking up. I suppose you've got to exclude Huddersfield because that wasn't a clean sheet, but I think he's making a point that defensively we've tightened up a lot, which I suppose is a fair point. It would be nice if we could score some goals to go with that bonus point, wouldn't it? But we're going to go to Preston North End Saturday. I'm recording this on the Thursday. Listeners, nearly said tomorrow, but Preston away on Saturday. They're not badly placed. They're in 7th position, so they're only 3 points in front of us. So they are rivals. They are playoff place rivals, really. So we can put a lot right if we get a result up there at Deepdale on Saturday.
Yeah, good mate of mine, Swanee, goes to some of their games, enjoys a little bit of corporate hospitality. And and by the sounds of things, they've got the same problem as us, and that's sticking the ball in the back of the net. They're quite sound. Yeah, they're quite sound defensively and in midfield, a bit like us. But then they do struggle to put the ball in the back of the net. Always.
I feel another 0-0 coming, Neil.
Mate, I think you're right.
Another 0-0 coming.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's... Yeah, I don't know what our record's like up there offhand, but it's not one of those places that immediately jumps out that we do well at.
Anywhere where the route from the station to the ground involves turning left at the prison is normally going to be a tough... invariably a long northern trek up there. But yeah, we're coming into the World Cup break. It would be nice if we can nick a result up there. We'll see. I've got a private message here from Kevin Fuller. Thank you to Kevin for contacting me via Twitter. Saying great show last week. Saturday's game was very frustrating, as has been the last 3 games. We really need a manager, Neil, who firstly can reorganise what we're missing up front, then have the right contacts to bring in loan players to push us on to the next level, Kenny Jackett had the right contacts and always brought in excellent loan players such as Chris Wood and Harry Kane back in the day. Nottingham Forest used the loan market well to get them promoted last year. I mean, the point about loan players is a valid one, I think, because we do have the January the January transfer window rather, looming soon. So given that we probably won't be able to lash out and buy the kind of talent that we're talking about, it's going to be interesting to see if we can exploit a lone player, a striker, I would imagine, to come in and maybe change it.
Three loan players. We've already got 3 loan players. Yeah, I don't think you can have many more, can you?
No, unless we send some back. I wonder. I'd take that point. But I think that if we're going to change it up front, unless we're going to stick with the format that we've got now, but then that would involve using players like, Isaac Alofe was on the bench on Saturday. He didn't get a chance at all. I think Afobe was injured last week, if I remember rightly. Arguably, we have strikers. It's just giving them game time and giving them the chances and hopefully a bit of luck to get the goal. But we'll see. The loan market. You're right. I think you have a maximum number of loans, don't you, that you can use in any one.
Yeah, well, I don't think he trusts. I don't think he trusts.
No, I don't think either.
Achtung, Millwall.
I want to say thank you properly to everyone that took part in the Poppy Day collections, Neil. One of the things, and we've just touched on the loyalty and the kind of the drive of Millwall fans. This is a Millwall show. But I just want to take my hat off to everyone that collected poppies. And I saw a post by Phil Clark, Mel, organised. She had a stand going over at the side of the Barry Kitch stand, and there were the others. And if I'm not naming, it's because I just haven't seen them. But I know there are plenty that get involved in the Poppy Day collection. And we're always an outstanding club when it comes to these kinds of charitable collections. And it sometimes takes my breath away, Neil, the amount that for a much maligned club and a much maligned support, which I will come back to later in my little notes here. But we just give so much. And it's not. I don't know if we want it widely known or acknowledged, but it isn't, is it? As a stereotype for us. Yeah,
no, Mel, I think she puts a tremendous amount of work into this, and the organisation behind it is absolutely mind blowing. I don't think I'd have the patience to do it, if I'm quite honest. And
patience is what's required. I mean, I don't think I have it as I get older. But
5 minutes. Yeah, but I get bored after 5 minutes. It's bad enough doing a podcast, but they're actually physically, the work that goes into this, and to organise the poppies, to organise the servicemen, to organise the boxes, and then you've got to organise getting the money to where it needs to go, and the poppies, and just it's just absolutely mind blowing that a little club like ours, and I'm actually going to praise the MFC. Actually, the Millwall Supporters Club.
Supported the MSC,
the MSC. They actually got one of those Tommy cutout things, I think.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's a striking image. Yeah,
put it by the Lee Callahan memorial bench, and they had a small service, I think, after the game. But just small things like that. It just shows what a special club this is, to be honest, and that we do get maligned, we do get everything else, but deep down, we've got a tremendous set of fans that only want to help. I know that I'm going to include you in this, doing this podcast and giving everything away to the food hub. We don't take anything out of this.
No, we don't.
We don't even take. We're doing this by StreamYard. I know you pay for this yourself. And
well, I mean, for me, it's a hobby. It's a hobby that I enjoy. Enjoy talking to the likes of yourself, Neil, and all the other guys on the show. I find it. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect coin. All sorts of things. You know what I'm saying here. This for me is something I enjoy doing. And if we it does produce some money. Everyone that tunes into the show will hear some adverts, and that produces an income stream. And I believe that you shouldn't do something like this for your own personal gain. I think that I'm asking the likes of yourself. You're a professional journalist, and some of the other guys are, journos and all sorts, but they're giving their time for nothing. I don't personally feel that you should pocket that money, because it wouldn't be right. And so we have some great causes at the Den, the Food Hub, Kelly, and those that help with the community scheme do tremendous work. I'm just proud to be able to give it to a cause. Keeping kids fed is the most basic thing of the lot, and I include all the people we just mentioned here with the Poppy Day, because a lot of time and effort goes into it. The work, half the battle, listeners, if you want to know who half the battle is liaising with people. That's half your task, dealing with people.
It's a full-time job in itself, isn't it? Trying to organise everybody and
organising people
in the right places, and
and dealing with people with their own ideas and all sorts of things. That's half of it. You either enjoy that or you don't, and not everyone can do it. So I take my hat off to everyone that got involved in that remembrance service last week. It was I watched it on screen. It was really, really well done. The servicemen coming out. We do these things very, very well, and something we should all be very, very proud of, in my opinion. Just to leap around my little agenda here. We've just mentioned stereotypes of Millwall. I don't know if I laughed or cried when I saw this. It was in the Sun, Neil. I got a big picture of the M25, I imagine, with the Just Stop Oil protesters on the gantries. And the banner headline, they've got a queue of traffic going along the M25, but the banner headline for this article, which I haven't got the picture of, but it says the police must get tough on the eco protesters. Cops would never use this softly approach with Millwall fans. I thought, on the one hand, you can laugh at that because it's kind of I suppose there's an amusement factor in there, but then there's this kind of idea that Millwall fans need to be treated like they're doing some criminal activity. I know we sing "No One Likes Us" and we don't care, and that's a great song. And we all, I don't know. There's a lot going on in that headline. I'll read it again for listeners. The police must get tough on the eco protesters. Cops would never use their softly approach with Millwall fans. There's a lot built into that sentence, I think, don't you? I find it breathtaking. We've become a byword for, I don't know, we've become a cliche in the eyes of the media. We'll never change it. Whether we want to change it is a question as well. But that there's just a huge amount of assumption built into that sentence there, don't you think?
Well, it might surprise you, but I've got one or two things to say about this.
So I thought I'd just go on mute and lean back now.
yeah, well, you might as well. The weaponisation of Millwall, it's tedious, and this is coming from a media organisation that is owned by News International that hacked a dead girl's telephone to get a story, and a newspaper that has made up countless stories of Liverpool fans robbing dead fans, and have actually paid out for phone hacking themselves.
Yeah.
And to use Millwall yet again, there was a story a few years ago about they sent an undercover reporter, and he was made to feel uneasy because he was black. What a load of fucking tripe. Honestly, it really is. And just this weaponisation of Millwall and Millwall fans. There's a podcast called The Thought Police, and I quite liked it. Mike Graham and Kevin O'Sullivan. Okay. But where they went down this road of, I'd like to see them remove Millwall fans like this. What is it? I know we all sing "No One Likes Us, We Don't Care." We all like the gasps that you get from people when they say who do you support, and you go, Millwall. What of it? And they'll go, they're not very nice, are they? Well, fuck off if you don't like it, yeah. but just this weaponisation of our club and our fan base from a media organisation that has done a lot worse than Millwall fans could ever do, hacking a
Yeah.
dead girl's phone. How low is that? Honestly,
Yeah.
I've got no time for these eco zealots. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, but I shared something on social media where somebody threw a traffic cone across the road and it took one out. Yeah, like the Phil Taylor of traffic.
But you will get that. You will get that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a separate question. I take your point because protest of this kind, whatever the rights and wrongs of the cause, as ever with protest, there's normally a nugget of something in there. There is a good point is being made, but it's how you choose to do that and the disruption you cause to everyday people. I'm thinking of when people climbed on top of the railway trains at Canning Town. Actually, on it, that was an Extinction Rebellion. If you're not upsetting those that matter, you're upsetting everyday people trying to get to work, and that's where this protest goes down the wrong road. But anyway,
hospital appointments and things like that. Yeah, but
fire brigade and all sorts. You name it. Everyone's got stuff they got to do, and you achieve nothing, I believe, unless you take people with you on your protest, and you can talk about the rights and wrongs of these things till the cows come home. But unless you take people with you, then you antagonise them, and that's the reverse of what you want to achieve. But what you said about the media is interesting because I'm not a journalist, but the thought process behind any story it's like they cast cartoon images of things. You don't ever get the full picture because I don't know if readers or listeners to TV or to readers of the newspapers, I think they're given very limited credibility by the producers of these things, because in their mind you've got what does a Millwall fan mean? It means like a mindless thug, a Neanderthal, someone that can't string two words together, and I don't know, blah blah blah. And that's the image that's summed up with that particular headline. Then you'll get people, Neil, coming back to you saying, what are we all Liverpool fans? Are we crying our eyes out because someone said a nasty word about us? And I'd take that point. It's water off a duck's back to some extent. It caught my eye because of the inbuilt assumption because cops are entitled to use whatever a softly approach might mean. I don't know. These people are getting nicked after a fashion. But whatever a softly approach isn't, so what, you can rough Millwall fans up and that's okay? Is that what they deserve? I don't know. It's just loads built into that sentence. It just caught my eye on
yeah,
social
it's just a
media.
weaponisation of it. I didn't really pay too much attention to it yesterday, Wednesday, I think, when it came out. And but it's just this constant. There's 91 other professional football clubs in this country.
Yeah.
Most of which have got far more going on than Millwall.
Well, let's put it this way: no one's ever got killed at a Millwall game, but I can think of one major club that is the apple of the media's eye, Liverpool, where things have happened, where people have died, and we've never done that, and yet somehow we are cast as the convenient co-pig, as dear old Rich Bird would have put it.
He's absolutely spot on. It's just that after a while, it just grinds your gears. I'm pretty much somebody that will defend the media quite a lot, obviously, because I've worked in it since I was 18. It's just constant sly jibe after sly jibe. It shows very little imagination at all, doesn't it?
No, I agree.
Yeah, if they'd have said football fans on a Saturday afternoon, I'd have said, well, actually, I think he's got a bit of a point here. Yeah. Whoever known Mark was that wrote this piece. And, but let's be honest, the Sun used to sell about 4 million. They're down to about 1 million, just over 1 million. And that says an awful lot about our biggest selling newspaper in this country. I can tell you the last time I bought a proper newspaper.
No, I was thinking that actually. I was thinking the same thing, Neil. I was in a shop because I'm out here in rural Herefordshire, listeners. So in London, it was noticeable how I used to get the racks of newspapers at the petrol stations. You know, when you go in to pay for your petrol, you have a whole array of them. And I was in one the other day before we came away, and there were no newspapers for sale there. There were none. There was one small rack of magazines inside the shop. This was a Sainsbury's petrol station. No newspapers, and it's really striking. I mean, I went into a place down here the other day, and they had some local papers, the Western Mail and one or two others. But you think, blimey, look, there's newspapers for sale, and you think how normal it once was that you had a range of 10 daily newspapers going, maybe more. And that's faded and gone.
They're
selling
millions. And now you find they're selling 200,000-300,000, the vast majority a day.
But don't you think, going off on a tangent here, listeners, but that's why you tune into this show, because of the interesting tangents that we go off at. I mean, Neil, you're as you just said, you've been in media journalism all of your life. The emphasis now is on online. Obviously, that's where the money has to be made in terms of online advertised content, or sometimes you might pay for it, I guess. But it's the standard and quality of what. When I think back to maybe blokes you've worked with in your time, the quality of journalism now, in terms of insight and memorability, that's not a word. You don't get the great writing that you used to get in the world of sport, include football, cricket, and rugby, and so on. It's all about knock it out fast, get it on social media, and hopefully someone will click on the advert. And it just we've gained a lot, and yet somehow we've lost a lot as well in the world of media, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, you used to get at least an hour after a match to write your match report. Now they want it on the final whistle, sometimes even 10 minutes before the end of the game.
So you can see the result.
There's a bunch of stories there, yeah. 10 minutes before the end of the game, depending upon deadlines. But there is this clickbait element, isn't there? And this is classic clickbait, isn't it? They know that they're going to get
someone will go on.
Just giving it 10 minutes of.
And they've got us talking about it. Yeah.
But let's be honest, the Sun is a fucking rag, and I would strongly advise people not to bother buying it. Save you 50p. Read it online for free.
Seconded on that front.
Achtung, Millwall.
Achtung, Christmas is a-coming, dear listeners. And to quote Richard Chaplow, 26 appearances, 9 subs, 1 goal, as he once said, you cannot beat a good board game. And we've got a good board game for you here. Achtung has teamed up with a tremendous football trivial pursuit style game called Pundit. You can follow Pundit at Pundit Games on Twitter. And it's a really nice little game, actually. It's a board game. It consists of football trivia questions, easy and hard. Some of the hard ones are very, very hard. And you move along a football pitch to score goals against your opponent. It will suit the football head in your life, dear listeners. Great way to pass a Christmas afternoon. You can get a 10% discount if you visit punditgames.co.uk. That's PUNDITGAMES, punditgames.co.uk. You get a 10% discount at checkout with the code LIONS in capital letters. LIONS, capital letters. And every sale will benefit the Lions Food Hub. What a better way to pass your Christmas than to enjoy a good football trivia game and to know you're doing good at the same time. So get on it. punditgames.co.uk.
Achtung, Millwall.
Little story I saw here, Neil, just to move us along. Premier League next season is going to include a winter break, a January break. They're going to have a week off. It sounds like a very long break, but anyway, I suppose it's establishing the principle. So the 23-24 Premier League season will break between the 13th and 20th of January. So they have a week off, which doesn't seem like much of a break to me, but I think that's more about establishing it as a principle for a longer break in years to come.
Yeah, they have done it in the past, haven't they? They've done it for the last couple of years, where I think half the teams have had 1 week off, and then the second half, the other half has had the following week off. I think it's as long as these clubs aren't allowed to go out to Dubai and Saudi Arabia and whatever else and play lucrative friendlies,
which is the temptation,
which I still believe player welfare isn't the primary concern here. I think they're going to try and sneak a game in here or a game in there. Very, very suspicious of it.
Seems a thin end of the wedge.
Are they? Yeah, but they're hardly overworked. What do they do? Pitch up for a couple of hours a day, do a little bit of running around, go home, figure out how you're allowed to spend your 50, 100 grand a week. It's a hard life, isn't it? And then, but then every weekend they play a game, and you might have to play a game midweek, but you fly everywhere first class. You don't even do your own bloody cooking. It's hardly... it's hardly a hard life, is it?
Maybe there should be a protest movement called Just Stop Football. That might be.
Just stop modern Premier
football.
League.
Stop Premier League football.
Yeah, but I know the other day they were discussing potentially Premier League clubs don't enter the League Cup or the Carabao Cup, whatever it's called now.
Carabao.
Yeah, but to be fair, I wouldn't lose any sleep if they scrap that. It's not something that Millwall ever do particularly well in, and I think it's a waste of time, really, isn't it? You very rarely get, when you get the likes of Millwall playing a second string against Cambridge, you know that something.
So the competition's flawed, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
So this is a break in proceedings next season for Premier League clubs between the 13th and the 20th of Jan 2024. Also, no 2 rounds of matches over the Christmas and New Year period will take place within 48 hours of each other. So you've got a 2-day break. There we are. Bothered, I suppose, is the reaction of most listeners to this particular podcast. Just one more thing from me, Neil, before we close. The Lions Trust. I thought I'd just bring listeners up to speed with where we are with the Lions Trust. It's been a very slow process, and I can only apologise to listeners. We've been dealing with Companies House. We've been dealing with the Football Supporters Association, and also the fact that the trust had fallen into abeyance for a few years. So anyway, we brought our accounts up to speed now with the the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority. We're now registered with Companies House. We are moving towards a point soon, once we've got our website and we've got a few rules and regs from the Supporters Association to actually get members, full paid members for the Lions Trust. And at that point, I'm hoping that we'll find a new chairman or chairperson to take on the running of the trust. We now hold, I think it's 94 shares in the new revamped company that is Millwall PLC. I don't know if it's public limited now. I think it might just be limited, Millwall FC Limited. So yeah, and the Lions Trust will look after those shares on behalf of Millwall fans. It will also take part in whatever fan engagement process comes out of the government's legislation, and the main ones that we've touched on this before will be that Supporters Trust, now the Lions Trust, now it's formally very close to being formally up and running. It will hold potentially, if this legislation goes through, the rights to look after the identity of the club colours, to object and hold a veto over any name changes and moves away from the area and all this kind of thing. So it's a really important Supporters Trust. It won't be terribly sexy. It won't be doing stuff on a regular basis that will catch the eye. It's not a supporters club. It's not a protest group. It is probably a fairly sober organisation that looks after the shares and holds these important responsibilities on behalf of Millwall fans. We will be posting soon, I hope, when we can take membership fees from members to become formally members. You have to be a formal member to vote for the chair, and this will be announced fairly soon. One thing I just wanted to say before I close on this, Neil, is that the club I've produced a certificate for all shareholders who had their shares reduced and combined into the Lions Trust's shareholding. They called it a certificate of appreciation. You can contact Millwall Football Club to obtain a certificate of appreciation because these were shareholders that have invested in the club over the years. Now, obviously, John Berylson is the major shareholder with one or two others, including the trust, but one of the smaller holdings. But you can get a certificate of appreciation for what you put into the Millwall Football Club all those years ago, from the mid-'80s, whenever it was we first started floating on the stock exchange till recent times. Contact the club for details. We've reposted on the Lions Trust Twitter feed for details as to how to get it. And the Twitter feed is at the Lions Trust. So if you want to go on Twitter and find that, I'll repost it again after the show, just so that people those that want it, can get a certificate of appreciation, which I think may become collector's items in the future if that's your thing. There we are. So keep an eye out on the Lions Trust Twitter feed for more news once we can actually start getting paid members in, and hopefully announce a new chair at some stage soon.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's a little bit better quality than the old
tin.
Still knocking around. No,
sorry. I mean, I haven't seen it, and I've not been involved in its design, and I don't want to be involved in its design.
I do digress, and I was being sarcastic. Also, for those people that aren't on Twitter, Hoff, I know that Golden Balls on Hoff.
Yeah,
Phil Clark is always up for. He posts a lot on Hoff, and I believe on Facebook on the various Millwall groups. So there is some great interaction going.
Yeah.
To reiterate what Nick said, this is something that it isn't going to be a sexy organisation, is it? It's not going to be. Yeah, you're not going to be able to. Yeah, well, if you pick up a band, you can approach a Lions Trust to take up your calls. This is very much safeguarding and looking after our interests. Not that I believe that John, I sound like a broken record here, that John would ever do anything to put the long-term future of this club.
No, I mean I think you're right. John Berylson has shown over. How long has it been here now? It's since about 15 odd years now, one way or the other. And he's shown his stewardship to be very solid and exactly what we need. I generally, you and I have had debates about buying in players and overstretching the club, and as some clubs have done in the past. I don't believe that's right for Millwall. And if it does mean that we can't score a goal for a couple of games, well, but you never know what's around the corner in football, and all things come to an end, and it's making sure that you have a supporters group that's there to look after the fundamentals, the identity, to be there as a group around which fans could conceivably, if it was ever needed, look to form, and save the club as a kind of as happened with other sides like Brentford in their time and Wimbledon in their time. So it has that lifeboat quality, as I always call it. But for the time being, it's important, I think, to have it.
Yeah, no, it's superb calls. And I would urge anybody to join. I'll certainly be joining because, that we're getting on. But we do want this club to survive for another 130 odd years, don't we? Another 130 odd years of misery, heartache, and everything else that's
stereotyping and
being a Millwall and stereotyping and
more news as and when on the Lions Trust. Neil, I thought we'd just close with a short rest in peace, really, for a player from the 1960s who passed away, I understand, recently, Dickie Plume.
Yeah, Dick Plume, a halfback. For those people that don't know the name, for our younger listeners, or even for our older listeners, he was one of many Tottenham-born players that were brought into the den in the middle of the swinging 60s, but suffered a lot with injuries and was never really able. His career never really kicked on, and he made 18 appearances, scored 1 goal for the club. Went on to Leyton Orient and won a 3rd division title with them in '69, and then appeared in a FA Trophy final for Barnet in about 1972. Went on to run several pubs and catering establishments in Kent. But yeah, no, a shame, because obviously we talk about links of the past, and Dickie Plume was a steward of the club for many years, or for 3 years back in the 60s. You might be wondering what the silence is. That is because Nicky Hart, Elvis impersonator, has left the building. He's trying to log back in. So whilst we wait for Nicky Hart, we will play a song.
Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come. Let 'em all come down to the dead. Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come. We'll only have to be. Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come. Let 'em all come.
Yeah, I was just entertaining the listeners.
Judy. I had a flop. This is my age, listeners. I had a flop of internet. Oh dear, poor old Dickie Plume, halfway through his obituary, and then the rural level internet that I've got here let me down, listeners. Apologies for that. But yeah, Dickie Plume. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Dickie Plume, 1966, 1969, 18 games for Millwall, Neil, 1 goal, and a career that took in such clubs as Millwall, Orient, Barnet, Maidstone, Canterbury, Crawley and Tooting and Mitcham. Passed away recently. R.I.P. Dickie, I think. Well, Neil, I think it's probably a good time to try and wind in my steam-driven internet down here. I really want to say thank you for joining me, and apologies for the somewhat rugged internet stream this week. We'll be back in town from next week, and hopefully back to normal, mate. So it's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, no, and you. Yeah, it's great that you interrupted your week away and walking your cat or whatever you've been out doing in the back garden.
we brought the cat away with us, listeners. The cat's gone away, so it's been a success so far. So
yeah, complete with harness, apparently. You can buy these harnesses in the club shop very soon. I'm relied. Yeah, I'd like to get that dig in, didn't I? Yeah, you thought I'd forgotten about the cat harness.
It's all true. It's all true. Big thank you, Neil. Big thank you to you too, listeners. We'll edit this show, get it out online shortly. Until after the Preston game, we're back at the weekend. Until then, it's arrivederci Millwall, and bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.